G'day and welcome to my garage. Rivets. I've already put some rivets in this. I need to do some more for the motor rail, for the transmission motor rail. But rivets, I haven't discussed any much about the rivets. These points here are the single rivets. They're steel. They're actually made of nails, and they allow the movement of the transmission assembly to pivot on itself. So all these points are pivoting points. So there's six steel rivets on each side. That's 12 rivets, and this whole action in this particular case of Gindry's milling machine is to lower this counter shaft so the belt can be changed, and then we bring it up slightly over centre. I still have to put stops on there after I put a belt on and get the tension right. And and going back, that, as you can see, lifts it up. So we have 6 rivets each side, 12 all up, and they're all nails, and they're being riveted over or deformed to stop the pin, the nail itself, from coming out. So let's talk a little bit about how the heads are formed. These are the nail heads, and if you can see inside there, let's see if we can bring you in a bit. Don't know how well you can see that, or whether you can see any of the. Anyhow, I'll discuss the how we deform the nail to become a rivet. So let's talk just a little bit about rivet styles, the ones that you'll come across at home. There are other applications in industry, but and they come under different names, but the ones we know mostly at home is the simple pop rivet or blind rivet, however you want to call it. This particular one is an aluminium. We can get those in different materials: stainless steel, aluminium, and steel. I use aluminium exclusively, only because they're cheap and they do everything. And then a steel mandrel, I think it is, down the centre, which yes, as you deform the rivet with the head of the nail or the mandrel, as it's been pulled through, that head will, or the shaft will break and leave that little head inside the deformed part. Used by everyone at home. Come in different lengths, different thicknesses, different sizes, but that's the common pop rivet. Now, why don't I use this? I don't use this because these work really well in numbers. They, as a single item, they're not that very strong, particularly in the aluminium. They're not very strong, but many rivets, and if you have a look at the aircraft industry, there's tens of thousands of rivets in an aircraft. Have a look at old bridges, Sydney Harbour Bridge. Well, I'm in Australia, so that's easy to talk about. It's got, what was it? Over 1 million rivets. I think it was 5 or 6 million. I can't remember now. All they were hot rivets, but they were not pop rivets. But again, strength in numbers. How far to put them apart, I have no idea. But we're not here discussing how many rivets or the pop rivet. Now, to install the pop rivet, of course, this is the larger gun for the bigger 3/16 and quarter, and then the hand gun for the smaller ones. But irrelevant in that we're not going to use pop rivets, because as a single unit they're not very strong, and also you've got to admit you're using it as a hinge on a very thin aluminium pin, and it's hollow, so not designed to be a long-term pivot pin. Alright, so what am I going to use? Well, I'm going to use nails, just common garden variety house nails. Buy them at your local hardware or box store or whatever you call them. I looked online to buy solid rivets. Cue a picture. But I couldn't find them. I'll guarantee they're out there. That's not a problem. They're still extensively used in a number of industries. But as a home handyman, and just wanting, in this case, what have we got? 12 in the transmission, and then there's probably 1, 2, 4, 6 more rivets. So what have we got? 22, less than 30 rivets. So I tried to see if I could buy a pack of 50. They're not on at eBay. I didn't find them at the local hardware store. So I'm reverting to nails. The disadvantage of these is the solid rivet comes in different materials, aluminium and steel, but the steel ones I can remember my father brought home many years ago, back in 1970, 68, somewhere around there. He would have quarter bolts, quarter by inch bolts and solid rivets in his pocket. That was the material. He was working on sheeting locomotives at the time, and I've used a couple then when I was young, and I can remember they were a fairly soft, malleable material. They could have either been aluminium or they were a more malleable steel. Not too sure, but I haven't got any, so I'm using house nails. So yes, all right. So how am I using these? Well, the hole that this goes into has to be preferably a neat fit, because as we hammer this down and deform the nail, it will swell the shank inside the hole slightly, not much, won't be much. So don't put don't drill a 1/4 inch hole and then expect a 3/16 nail or of any kind of rivet to fill the gap. So it has to be a fairly neat hole, as long as you've got the drill size. And the length I put these in and then into the material, the joint itself, and about 3 to 5 millimeters. I've looked online, I've done a bit of reading, there's not much out there, and the consensus is about 1 to 1.5 the diameter of the rivet shank. So this is 4.5, so we're looking at 4.5 to 6, nearly 7 mil. I don't like it that long because it's hard to deform the nail, the shank, evenly. So anyhow, we'll get into it, and I can demonstrate better than I can talk to you on how I use these nails as a rivet. Let's set up to do that. Okay, so the process here is, and I've started, but I haven't gone far. The process here is to deform this nail as nicely as possible to create another mushroom head on this side. The nail head itself is a slight mushroom. We won't get that shape, but we want to mushroom this side over. Now we've got to slowly peen this so that the excuse me, we will peen this over, but trying to get the nail to deform straight down, not on an angle. It started to run off to the right, to my right, so I'm now trying to bring it back. And it's just a slow process. Just gently, don't go whacking into it. I'll use the heavier part of the rail. You've got to keep these two pieces together as best you can. Now, I mostly use the flat face of the hammer. It's easier to get it on the head of the nail, but the peen end is easier. It spreads it easier, but it's also easier to bend the nail in the wrong place. So I don't use it until I've got the deformation that I want. Now I've got a reasonable finish there. Don't know if you can see that. Looks all right, and it's a tight fit. That's what I'm after, and that's what a solid rivet's good for. A good fit, and also a strong hinge, not like an aluminium top rivet. Now the nail wasn't made specifically for this purpose, obviously, so the head won't sit nicely against the steel. So if you're particular, you can just dress that up by hitting it and trying to keep it as a uniform deformation. So the head now has nicely closed in. The other side's pretty good. Deformation was good, and that's a nice tight fit. Let's do another one. Right, I'm back. I just had to go and make sure that I'm actually doing the right hand side, and that it's a mirror image of the left hand side. I freely recognise that I have a huge problem with left and rights. Not that I don't know the difference, but when I go to make something, I invariably end up with two lefts or two rights. So I just went to make sure that I've got the opposite hand there, and we'll try this one. Now I did do some research. There's very little on hand riveting. You know, as a young mechanic, I did many brake shoes, but I did them without the jig and with the jig. Without the jig's just as good, but on the internet there's not much. But there is a couple of good ones. John von Wald, Riveting, and Old Sneelocks Workshop. They do some hand riveting. That's worthwhile investigating. But let's see if we can deform this one. So that's all it takes to do that one. We just dress that off. It looks pretty good. Again, it's a nice tight fit. So those two. Now I've got to put some little feet on the bottom. So these legs then screwed down to the bench. I might try something different. I haven't done this before. I've got plenty of leftover nails, so I only took about less than half an inch off a 4-inch nail. Off the 4-inch nail, so I've got a fair bit of stock. So I'm going to try and use the nail without its head. Just use a straight nail, and we'll see how we go about deforming both ends of the nail. I'll bring you back for that one once I set myself up. Alright, we're back. So I'm going to use just a straight nail, no heads. And what I'll do is I've cut these to length, so 5mm above each surface. I've got a 5mm plate here for the first edge. That will give me the correct spacing of the pin past the outside edge, whichever edge it's going to be. And I can then put it all together and safely peen the first one, knowing that I've got 5mm sticking out this side, so when I turn it over, this plate comes off. So let's first make sure we've got this the right way. That's the offside. Yep. Did I say I was a bright spark? I should have done these feet before I did the two longer angles, because now there we go. Now I've got a bigger frame to hold. Anyhow, let's see how we go. And I've got nothing to hold that. Alright. One side. Will that piece come off? That'll be the question. With some encouragement, hopefully. You're watching this live. Well, not by the time I posted it, obviously, but I've gone and alright, make a bit of noise. Well, this bright idea didn't work. Did I explain I hadn't done this before? I still like the idea, I just got to get over that problem that I've now created. You're going to come off whether you like it or not. So maybe that just didn't work. Hang on, I remember now. There's a split. Get a chisel. Now will you come off? Doesn't look like it wants to. Quick, go to a commercial break. This is now becoming embarrassing. There we go. Told you I'd win. But I didn't like that idea much. So let's finish this one off. And notice that the rivet is very close to the edge of the rail. Roll to one side a little bit. Still got to stay that way. Now it's working out. That will turn. That will turn. Look. Ye of little faith. Okay, second leg, where's the other foot? We're back. So this foot, that's going to go nearest, that goes over there, that goes on there. Opposite. Let's see, it's got to go that goes the opposite side. That's it. I don't like the amount that's sticking through. So I will persist again with that plate. It's probably not going to work again, but alright. It didn't go as far as last time. Let's see how it works this time. It'll still be jammed. Obviously this is not working again. Should have learned from the first time, but I refuse to learn sometimes. I didn't like the amount of rivet that was hanging out. So this is definitely not working, so don't do it this way. It's only for stupid people like me. who persist on making life difficult for themselves. There we go, see, it works. Find a different way, boy. Alright, let's see how much is hanging out. I don't like that. I'm going to cut this shorter. That worked a lot better after cutting it shorter. Well, after posting this, I can rest assure you I won't be applying for jobs at Boeing. Anyhow, it worked. It worked, just took a bit of patience. It's so tight. It's so tight now. No, I'm just weak from all the hammering. There we go. There we go. That'll loosen up a bit. There we go. There. That's it. That's the way. That's the way it's fitted on. It's actually quite nice. So I had it on. I took about 3 mil off, so I had about 1.5, 2 mil of nail rivet to roll over and deform into a mushroom on both sides. So definitely wouldn't be having 3 mil or even like what did I measure? 1.1 to 1.5 times the mandrel size, the rivet size. That was a 4.5 mil. We'll say 4 mil. That's 4 mil sticking out to 1.5, so it's 6. No, it's too hard to deform straight 6 millimeters. I I would stay with, I would say 3. I did the other transmission parts on about 3 to 4 mil. They rolled over nicely. They kept straight. They weren't too long. So 3 mil plate is 3 mil. The other plate's 3 mil. That's 6, and then 3 mil either side is that's still 12 mil. It's a fair bit. I think I only had about 1.5 mil either side, so bring it down to about 9 mil. But it's not holding a bridge together. It isn't, and the number of times these will move, maybe even the aluminium pot rivets would have worked. But someone on YouTube asked me if I could do a bit of a tutorial. I said, oh, I'll look into it, see what I can do. I'm not a teacher, and I'll leave as much of this video as possible without editing it out. But yeah, look, it can be done. I have done very little of this over the years, but just applying myself to it, and a lot of sweat. Don't know if you can see that on me. It's about 38 in the shed, and I'm only 2 foot from the roof, so it's sweltering hot in here. But that's where the vice is. I tried this on my bench table outside, but it bounced too much. Alright, catch you later. Have a good one. I'm back. I didn't want to leave that last riveting, video as the last call, because as you saw, I struggled to get the backing plate off the rivet. So what I've done is I've enlarged the hole out to 7 millimeters. The pin is 4.5, 5 millimeters in diameter, thickness. The 2 plates, this is just a couple of scrap pieces of steel. So 2 plates together, a bit over 6 millimeters. That's a 6 millimeter bar, and I've made the pin 17 millimeters. So that leaves me to put this together. So that leaves me with how much? 5 millimeters, is it? 4.76 stick out. So let's give this a go. I am touching my fingers slightly and it hurts. Look at that, beautiful. So what did I give myself? 4.76, 5 mil we'll say. And we have 6.4 stick out on this side. Okay, that looks really good. Come on, focus. So there we go, that's just a straight piece of nail, no head, and I just enlarged the hole for that backing piece wherever that went. It's lost on my bench, which isn't very hard to lose on my bench. But anyhow, I drilled out the backing piece to 7mm. It gave me more clearance for the rivet to swell. But as you can see, you can get a nice finish. It's easily achievable. That's very tight, but I haven't got any leverage action with this test piece. Very happy with that. So, although I struggled on the first two, that was my own silly fault for not drilling the second one out to the second time I didn't drill it out to a larger hole. There you go, it works. Well, first thing what I've done is I've radiused the end off and drilled this hole out to an M10 for 3/8 M10. But what's concerned me is that was supposed to be a half inch in. Although I did bring that in half inch. Yeah, 12.5 mil.